That's all right.
We've, I think, been getting some questions in. This one says, thank you, outstanding university evangelism is mostly done by men in my country. Do you think it's important to have female voices as well, or does it not matter? I wonder what you're going to say to that.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I think it raises a very important issue. I must confess, in my country, most of the churches and especially the CUs are very open to having female speakers. So I don't face that struggle a lot, and yeah, so that gives me a lot of freedom. But I do think, yes, it's so vital to have female speakers because half of the population is female, and I think I think, you know, men and women are different and we communicate in different ways. So I think the gospel actually loses a lot of its attractiveness if we don't hear the female voice. You're cutting half of the population off of it. And I think, you know, Jesus had women disciples. I think Paul had women who were helping him as well. So we are in a good tradition there. And at least in my country, if we didn't have female speakers, that would be seen as something negative, because obviously everyone is very much looking at having both sexes represented everywhere. So I do think, yes, we need male and female voices to work in partnership, to work together. And I actually enjoy doing that on an online mission we did where I gave that talk. I actually shared the platform with a colleague of mine, and we interned it with the talks, but then in the Q&A, it was the two of us together answering the questions. And the feedback we got was that people especially liked that, the fact that we had come together with different personality, but also different sexes, and we're giving different perspective on the question. So yes, thank you for that question. I want to really encourage you, go for it. Don't try to push and to fight for it, but use every opportunity you can. Be brave and courageous. Maybe, you know, start with talking to international students. Sometimes that's a bit easier. Start with doing a ladies gathering, but then, yeah, whenever you can, take a step up and be courageous. You can do it.
That's great. I mean, we're all talking a lot about how we need to connect with our audience and yes, how we can do that. And if in a number of our cultures we are losing half the audience because they're not represented on the speaker circuit, yeah, then that is a serious oversight. And maybe if you're listening here as a young woman who has this gift, wants to develop this gift of evangelism, we can help you. Just go on to the IFES Europe Facebook page and contact Nae Dawson, who is running our Passion for Evangelism, a network for younger women in IFES to help them to thrive. And she will give you lots of pointers as to how you can help develop that gift and be part of that network.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that, Monty. I think we really need to get together, especially as women, to encourage each other. And that network PFE that Nae has started, I'm part of it as well. And it's just a joy to be doing this together, to encourage each other and, yeah, to be with one another.
Yeah, wonderful. Yuli, you're a great communicator. Really loved your use of quotations. How do you go about researching those? You know, the ones from the psychologist, etc. Yeah. How do you harvest those?
Yeah. So one of the things I do is I read not a daily, but a weekly newspaper. This is a very good, a very thick one. I try and take it to the gym, and then there I read it. And one of the challenges an evangelist gave to me when I started doing this was you need to find one quote every week. So make sure you find one quote every week. And so you don't have to read up all the psychology books and all the sociology books, but in these newspapers, they often have brilliant articles, and they have already done the research. And then you can go and find out about what is important and relevant, and then read up on it again. So you don't have to do, you know, all the broad reading. And then I think what is important is to keep a good record of your quotes. So I don't have the best technique. Go to Michael Oates. I know he does that very well. I put them all in a Word document, and then trying to file it is something different. But read newspapers, try and watch films and books, and basically what you find interesting, I guess, and then make sure you take notes. And maybe we can all take that challenge up, one quote every week.
Yeah, great idea. Super. Do we have another question? Yes. Okay. There's always a funny one, isn't there? There's always a funny one. And somebody was saying, why is the photo behind you upside down? So there's obviously some people, talk about losing your audience. There's obviously some people who are so wired that when they were listening to you, all they could see was the upside down photo behind you.
Well, sorry. This is actually the banner from the online mission we did. And the motto was questionable. So the reason why it's upside down is that this is questionable. And this is a photo from the University of Leipzig in the east of Germany. But well spotted.
Okay, good. And there's reason behind it as well, which is wonderful.
There you go.
Okay. Next one. A man coming behind from the dead isn't plausible as much as you say it's the best explanation. So how can you believe in a religion that rests on this type of miracle? Yeah,
that's a very good question. If you have a purely materialistic worldview, if matter is all there is, then you can't allow for the possibility of miracles, and fair enough. And then you might find different explanations for the facts that I've raised. But if that's not the case, if there is the possibility of some form of God, of transcendence, if matter is not all there is, and I think there are good reasons why to believe that, intellectually credible, then I think we need to allow for this God or the transcendent being to work in our system. Now, that doesn't mean that the natures of laws suddenly cease to exist. But, if I'm doing this, obviously, sorry, these are the natures of laws. The law of gravity applies. But does the law of gravity still apply now? Yes, surely it does. But there's something stronger, and that is my arm, the strength of my arm that is holding this thing. So I think the natures of law are still in place. Yes, very much so. But if there is something stronger coming in, we need to allow for this stronger God, in a sense, to do something that we don't normally see. And yes, obviously, we all know that people don't normally rise from the dead. That's why we call it a miracle. It doesn't normally happen. But then in history, you need to know that things don't normally happen. Like, things only happen once. That's like that all across history. So I think we need to really have a look at the facts and then come to it with a historical mindset. So this is not chemistry we're doing, this is not physics, but you need to look at it with historical methods. And as I say, I think it's reasonable, looking at the facts, it's reasonable to believe that actually, yes, there was some divine intervenence and a miracle happened. But yes, you're fair enough. If you want to come to a different view, then you can do that. But then you have to explain those facts differently. And I do think it is very intellectually credible to believe yet that yes, God actually did a miracle and rose Jesus from the dead. Yeah,
great illustration there as well, and one I'm sure that we can use. Two more questions for us. I find thinking of eternal life diminishes the life here and now. There's so much I enjoy in this life. Isn't it better to think this is all that there is? So an interesting twist there. Hope, we're presupposing at this coronavirus time that things are miserable, but life is still good. And for many of our students, they love being alive at this stage in their life. So does it diminish life here and now?
Well, great. If you enjoy being alive, I am too. Please continue to enjoy life. This is an argument that others like Feuerbach and Freud and Marx have brought up as well. Isn't that, you know, you deluding yourself into some life beyond life, and then that makes you not fight against injustice, for example, or it diminishes your joy, as that question asked. I would want to say, yes, maybe that has happened in the past, and maybe certainly today as well, if you understand that belief in an afterlife wrongly. But actually, I think the opposite is what is happening if you truly understand the Christian belief in a life after life. Because as I try to point out in my talk, you see, it's not just discontinuity, all the good things, the meaningful things, the joy and the happiness that we live here is going to crash into the grave, and then something we don't even have access to is going to happen. We're going to all be floating beings on clouds and go to choir practice every day. That, you know, wouldn't sound very happy for me either. I think it's very different. I think everything that is meaningful and beautiful and to be enjoyed in this world will have continuity, because it is something that God has created, is something good, and that will be resurrected. But it will also be renewed and struck off, so to say, from all the negative things, from the pain and the evil and the frustration that comes with the joy we experience here. Because obviously, we go to the theatre and enjoy it, but then we come home and it's okay. So we never, in this world, we never know continuous joy, and I think that's something we will enjoy when we are with Jesus. And just very quickly, I want to mention one more thing, because often people also say, doesn't that make you chill and not engage in the fight for justice? I think the opposite is the case. I lived in Peru, and I have good friends who are very, very poor, and there are millions and millions of poor people around the world, obviously. Now, if I didn't believe that God would one day renew this earth and bring justice and make an end to all the corruption and the poverty in this world, that would completely, it would be so sad, and it would, I think I could not do anything, because it's all in vain. I think everything I do would just be in vain. It's just a drop in the ocean. But because I believe that God is actually going to do something, I can start now and be part of God's story, that he will one day continue and finish. So for me, it's the opposite. I can enjoy life more. I can stand up for justice with more motivation, because I know God is going to continue all this one day.
Yeah, I mean, in some respect, it's a little bit of a first world perspective at times, that, isn't it? That life's fine. Now, I always think of Lewis's point that the things that make life enjoyable now are actually hints of what is in store for us. So,
that's so true, yes.
When people say that to us, you're saying, well, the very things that you're enjoying are gifts from God.
Yeah, that is signpost, I think.
Yeah, great. I think this is our last question. I really like your central theme of the rope. At what point in your preparation did that analogy become clear to you? And did you have to remove quotes or anything, or change it to focus on that particular illustration?
So I really enjoy rock climbing, and whenever I do it, I feel this is worship, because I take so many analogies from it. So I think it became clear to me quite early on in the talk, because I was pondering about that question of, how can I make the point that we need something more solid than just positive thinking, because most of my friends or the students I talk to would say, well, it doesn't really matter whether it exists or not, as long as you believe in it, as long as you trust in it. And there are different images you could use. I know someone has used the image of ice on a lake. So if the ice is thin, you can really have trust and step on it. It will still crack. But if the ice is really good and thorough and thick, then you can step on it and be trembling, and it will still hold you. So that's another illustration. But for me, because I like rock climbing, that rope image resonates more with me. And then because I had it very early on, I think I tried to model kind of everything around it, so I didn't have to remove anything from it. But that's a very good point you're mentioning, because quite often we have these darlings. So that's a quote or something we really love, and we think, oh, this is amazing, and we want to bring it into the talk, but it doesn't actually take us further on the line down the road towards Jesus. It's just because we like it so much. So we call that kill your darlings. And actually yesterday evening, I was talking to my colleague about this talk and said, I think it's a bit too long. Maybe it still was, I don't know. And she said to me, I think you need to remove something from the start. But I was like, oh, but I like this point so much. I like this illustration. And she said, oh, there you go, kill your darlings. So make sure that, make sure you have someone else go through the talks, because they are often very much better in spotting your darlings.
Oh, wow. My wife Gwen is actually writing a book at the moment about the spirituality of decluttering, and her editor said exactly that to her. So she came home to me one day and she said, my editor says I have to kill my darlings. So I was a little bit paranoid from that moment. Oh. But yes,
don't take it too literal. Don't take it too
exactly. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we put so much into our talks, and at the end of the day, I have to realize it's not how brilliant I think the point is. It's about communicating and not losing something more important. That's a discipline, isn't it? And maybe in your small groups, this FEUER, folks, you've been able to have some feedback about that and learn some of those principles as you prepare evangelistic talks. Yulia, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful way to conclude the talks for this plenaries for this FEUER, and we just wish you all the best with the rest of your ministry.
Thank you very much. It's such a joy.
Been really appreciative of what you've been doing.